Hello, it is September here in Melbourne, Australia. It's time for another tour of my vegetable garden. In this video, I'm going to give you a detailed tour of what we've got growing in the vegetable garden right now. I'm also going to show you all the seeds that we are starting to plant today, all the little seedlings that we are preparing for spring and summer. That means tomatoes, that means beans, that means capsicums, that means all of my most favorite things that I love in summer. We'll also talk a little bit about the long range weather forecast. This spring's weather right across Australia is going to be a little bit different to the typical spring, and that will affect your growing. At the end, I'm going to bring you some exciting personal news and give you a little bit of a snippet into just why I do this. Before we get started, just a reminder, hit that subscribe button. I run these tours every single month, and in between we go and do tours of other amazing gardens around Melbourne, Victoria. They're all in the same playlist if you want to check them out later. Let's start with some of the new things I've got growing. So down here, I'm super excited about this. That is a raspberry cane. So I actually bought 3 berry canes from a nursery months ago, I reckon 2 months ago. And they just sat there for ages in their little pot because I had no idea where to put them, because berries grow very big and wild and woolly, but I'm super excited to have them. This is blackberries. I have just in the last couple of weeks popped these in the ground. This is only their temporary location just to get them going, start experimenting, start sort of understanding how berries grow. So here I've got Logan berries. You can see I've got them from the Diggers Club. These are thornless, which I'm hoping is going to be a little bit more of a friendly version for the kids. So I've got Logan berries, blackberries and raspberries growing, and it's a total experiment. One day I'd love to have a position in the garden set up where they can grow big and bushy. For now, they're in pots, and we'll just see how it works. This is a total surprise. I've told you about my capsicums before. It is obviously, we've just passed winter. There's no reason why these should be doing that. I moved them inside for a little while, and they just kept on growing. Now these are all they look brown. It's because they're starting to go red. We've already harvested capsicums in the last few weeks. The reason I moved them back outside, it's probably not warm enough technically for them yet, but they were getting aphids inside and I wanted nature to come and work its magic on there. My Brussels sprouts plant has been here for a really long time, but we're finally starting to see things that actually look like Brussels sprouts in there. I feel like we're going to end up with like 1 dish of Brussels sprouts out of like 9 months of growing. Maybe that's an exaggeration. So was it worth it? Look, it's pretty satisfying. And they just sit there in a pot. It's so easy to do. We are heading to the beach for the day today, staying for the night. So I am going to bring a bunch of this stuff with us. So we've got some nice fresh food and it'll save us a little bit at the supermarket. Rainbow chard, it just keeps producing, chop it off, keeps growing the best. I've got red amaranth growing here. I started this inside in the hydroponic setup from Gatherer that they gave me, and moved it outside because it was getting too big for there, and it looks beautiful. Look down here. Here are some tomato sprouts that have obviously come from the compost. There's a sign that the weather's warming up. I actually have little naturally seeded tomato sprouts everywhere. Let me see if I can find the others. So here in amongst my lettuce, look how many tomato sprouts there are. It will be really interesting to see how well they grow in there just naturally. But look, that one's already quite big. And we've had some pretty cold nights of late. So it's pretty impressive, I think, that they're doing that. I have no idea what variety they are, but I will probably let them get bigger and stronger and then save a bunch of them and have just some mystery tomatoes. Here we've got my little hydroponic setup from Gatherer, the Eco Kitchen. This is now about 6 weeks since I dropped a bunch of seeds in there, maybe 7 weeks. And I'm about to actually harvest some of that cos lettuce now. You can see the leaves are getting quite big, which is starting to block some of that light from getting to my basil down here. I'm going to actually trim back and harvest some of those leaves now. Some new additions since my last video. We've got some endive growing there, and we've got some watercress going here. Let me just show you what's underneath because this is really cool. Look how good those roots are. So if you're interested in working out what's actually happening here, understanding what hydroponics are, I've got a separate video explaining all of that. I have got a basket down there. I'm not just dropping them on the floor. Crunchy. So that's pretty cool. That was all grown inside in just a few weeks. No soil and no sun. While we're talking about lettuce, I have been loving lettuce from the garden recently. We've just had so much beautiful, beautiful salads. And I finally feel like I'm getting a good momentum in terms of growing different types of lettuce at different times so that I've always got a selection to pick and eat and enjoy. Now here, this is a surprise. This is a surprise. This is an actual broccolini plant. Now if you've been following me, you will have heard me talking about broccolini for ages. I've tried so many times. My plants kept getting eaten by the mice and the possums. One of them, this one, was decimated, but I just decided to try anyway. I covered it under that net for a while and it's finally getting broccolini. I'm going to actually pick, harvest and eat and enjoy those today. My kids love broccolini. I love broccolini. And when they're tender and sweet like this, you can actually just eat them straight from the garden. I often do. Yum. Lovely. So tender and yummy just like that. My kids actually will sometimes just ask me just for the stalks. They're sort of crunchy, a bit like beans. We are still loving our purple carrots. You can see they're starting to look quite a bit thinner than they were because we're just eating and enjoying them pretty frequently. Let's see what's going on down here. That one is not a particularly big one, but you can look at that rich, beautiful colour. So packed full of nutrients. And Chloe, my youngest, just loves picking them out of the garden, rinsing them under the hose and eating them just like that. This wonky makeshift net that I made, I showed you how I made it a few videos ago, has been a little bit too effective. It's been very good, but I've almost forgotten what's under there, and my bok choy has reached a point that I think it is going to seed, and I may have actually missed the opportunity to harvest it because I forgot about it. I can definitely salvage and enjoy some of that bok choy, but yeah, you can see it's, hey, look at that. Yeah, that's what bok choy looks like when it's going to seed.
Did you pull a carrot out, Mama?
I did pull a carrot out, Bubba. Purple kale, finally got that to recover from all the pests, and that is now doing well. Again, well protected by those nets. There's purple kale here too. And I've been really enjoying the rockets. My all-time favourite way of cooking kale is just on a fry pan with salt and garlic. Makes it delicious. And so, so good for you. And bok choy fresh out of the garden, oh, so crunchy. Well, most things I cook in olive oil. Bok choy is really good in butter. Salted butter. It's not the healthiest option, but it's the yummiest. Try it. Tell me what you think. It's so good. My broad beans are really starting to show some promise. Look how big and bushy they are now. And the most exciting part is all those beautiful flowers, which will hopefully turn into beans. So this has been a really, it's taken longer than I'd expected to get any sort of beans out of this plant. Yes. But I think we're pretty close. This one's flowering the best. The others are flowering a bit as well. So we've got broad bean plant number 2 here. Not nearly as many, but some flowers starting to develop, which will turn into beans. And upstairs here, I have broad bean plant number 3. Also getting some really good flowers on there. So this patch here hasn't changed too much since we last spoke, except everything's just continued to grow. Similar to what I've just showed you before downstairs, broccolini is taking off, which is amazing. You know, it's small and mighty, but just cool because I'd given up on these so many times. What have I got? Snow peas that are now at a stage that they are starting to, oh, actually these are sugar snap peas. Combination of sugar snap peas and snow peas are here. You can see my trellis isn't actually big enough. I should have got a bigger trellis for them to grow up. Now my beetroots, oh, that one's getting bigger. Oh, that's closer. That's definitely getting closer, that one. But they haven't been ready to harvest yet. Their leaves, however, are really, really yummy stir-fried. They're quite sweet. So even if you're growing beetroot at home and you're getting sick of how long it's taking for you to harvest your beetroot, grab some of the leaves. Not all of them, obviously. The beetroot itself needs some of the leaves to be able to keep getting that beautiful sunlight goodness and keep producing. But the leaves are yummy. In stir fries, any way that you might use spinach is a great way to use beetroot leaves. While we're here, I'm going to get some of this kale. Kale's another one of those things. Chop the leaves off, keeps them growing, as long as the pests don't get to it first. This is Tuscan kale. The other one was a curly leaf kale. This is all going to make for a delicious stir-fried noodle dish, I think. And down here we have our red cabbage. So these ones that got eaten are slower. That one is just slower. This one I could very easily harvest and eat that right now, and we've already harvested and eaten some of the others. Now last month I promised you that we would have new raised beds up here. We are getting so close. My father-in-law has been doing an amazing job. You can see he's sort of marked out a few points. We're going to have one along here and another long one along there, and I'm going to pull all this out very, very soon. So by next month, they'll be done. We're still getting an enjoyment from our wild mint down here that I do absolutely nothing to maintain other than provide a bit of water to. Coriander, which we're still really loving. Here we've got a little rosemary plant that's slowly starting to get established. And over there, sage, similar story, slowly starting to get established. Now in here, I'm super excited about what's in here because these are my tomatoes and beans. There's beans there too. These are all tomatoes. I've got lots more upstairs, which you'll see in a minute. The reason there are so many is because we are growing plants for our Kindy fundraiser plant stall. You want to what, Baba? This variation is called yellow honeybee, and I have lots of different variations that I'm growing upstairs. The reason I keep them in this greenhouse, it makes them much warmer, protects them from the frost at night, provides that warm environment for them to grow before the weather is actually warm enough. And today feels like the weather's actually warm enough. Over here we've got rocket seedlings that look a little bit worse for wear. I probably need to transplant those. They're going pink. I'm not sure if that's normal. I think it's probably a sign that they're a bit water. Okay, I'll get you some, Flossie. Over here we've got watercress, more lettuce, a couple of different lettuce varieties, including an endive, endive, never know how to pronounce that. And my trusty spinach. Still going strong, still loving it. You might feel like the mood has changed a little bit up here. For one, it's dark outside, and I'm speaking in a slightly more hushed voice. That's because it is nighttime. The kids are finally in bed. When you have two little preschoolers running around, it is very hard to focus on something for a long period of time. So I've put the kids to bed and I'm filming this episode in two different sections. But up here, I want to show you what I've been growing from seed and what you can start growing from seed right now. Yeah, there are way more seedlings growing up here than I'm actually going to need, and that is because my friend Jamie, you might remember her from the garden tour I did of her video a couple of months ago, we have committed to take on the plant stall at the Kinder fundraiser this year. So we are basically trying to grow enough herbs and veggie seedlings to fill an entire stall in about a month and a half. But it's great for you guys because it means I've got so much growing and it shows you everything that you could potentially be growing at the same time. Let's go take a look. So down here we have baby watermelons growing, specifically golden watermelons. I planted, I reckon maybe 8 different seeds in here with different types of capsicum and only one has sprouted. These ones, small yellow capsicums. These ones are more watermelons. So as they get a little bit bigger, I'll need to repot them. Now, these tomatoes have been crying out for help. You can see they are getting leggy, and they're starting to look a bit worse for wear because they really need to go into a bigger pot. So tonight, I am going to transplant them. I took a trip to the Pinewood Quality Nursery today, and they were kind enough to donate all these pots that had been used and were waiting to be recycled. So I was very grateful to them. So we are going to recycle these pots by potting our tomatoes tonight. So what have I got? Rouge de Marmande, there'll be a big one. Here I've got a whole lot of basil, which will also need to be repotted relatively soon. These are, ooh, can I still read that? That's another type of tomato I'm going to have to read when my eyesight is better. I have got more basil here because basil and tomatoes go really well together. More capsicums here. Oh, these ones are for my husband. He loves chili. Again, I planted quite a few in there and only 3 have sprouted, possibly because they should be on a heat mat. Chilies need lots and lots of heat. It does get pretty hot up here though. Now beans, these have been growing so quickly. My beans have been growing way quicker than I anticipated, and I reckon they will nearly be fruiting by the time I sell them. Check out how big these babies are. Ugh. Yeah, I planted them way too soon. More basil down here. You can never have too much basil. These ones are, what does that say? Zucchini. These are zucchini. They're looking pretty leggy. So you can see I've got those a bit higher to try and maximize the sun from this window. That's probably telling me they don't maybe get enough there, and I might need to move them out to the greenhouse. I'm also going to plant more zucchini because I want some for myself and I want some to sell. So I'm actually going to stick some more seeds in tonight indoors. More tomatoes over here that look in desperate need of a transplant. Large mortgage lifters they are. And over here I have a few cucumbers. Now these also aren't looking particularly healthy. A couple of them are sort of shriveling. I think I'm going to need to try again. Might be a watering thing because occasionally I do get busy and forget to come up and water. But even so, there's not enough. So I am going to grow some more of those. So while we're up here talking about tomatoes, and I'm going to multitask at the same time because I actually do need to repot all of these right now. So I'm going to repot as I talk. While we're talking about tomatoes, I mentioned in my last video, the time to get tomatoes in the ground usually is Spring Racing Carnival in Melbourne. So still a good few weeks away. But the Bureau of Meteorology has released their long range weather forecast for spring. And across most of Australia, it is going to be warmer and drier than average for all of spring. So the dates that you would usually plant things in the ground can probably be brought forward a little bit this year. You also need to factor in the dryness. So if you're setting up garden beds now for the next couple of seasons ahead, because summer is expected to actually be similar, think about your watering system. I've got a terrible watering system with my pots. I just water it all by hand. It's not very efficient. It's not a great use of water. But I am putting in some raised beds soon, very soon. And I've got actually some wicking beds coming, which I'm super excited about, which water from the bottom up, use much less water, and last for much longer. So if you go away for a few days, everything won't dry up. So that is something to keep in mind. It's not great from a climate perspective. Warm and dry can mean bushfires, but from a growing perspective, if you can get your watering system sorted out, hopefully that means we're going to have lots of beautiful summer veggies. Using a pen or something like a pen is a really good way of getting that deep little hole in there. And you can just slot it straight in, tuck over the sides. So this is probably not what you're expecting to learn about on this channel, but about 7 or 8 years ago, I went to Tanzania and I volunteered over there at a little pre-primary school. and I had the most amazing time and I met the most amazing people. I was there for 6 weeks, but I felt really frustrated when I was about to leave because I felt like I hadn't taught these kids enough that was going to have a real impact. I wanted to leave something that would last forever. So I set a bunch of them up in school over there. What I'm getting at, this has always been a passion project for me. This has always been a hobby. In the back of my mind, I was always hoping that maybe one day I could generate a small income from it. I do obviously work as well as a reporter, so that is my primary income. But I've just been accepted into the YouTube partner program, which means that will help me to keep supporting these kids. You know those annoying ads that often play at the beginning of your videos? I have no say over those, and they've been playing on my videos for a long time. Being part of the YouTube partner program means that I can actually earn a very, very small cut of income from those advertisers. So you can financially support my channel without paying a cent by just watching my videos. Thank you if you are a regular viewer, because that means more to me than anything. And if you want to help support these beautiful kids, keep watching. Go and watch something else. Thank you for joining.